now take you to the broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here is Reverend Martin.
And let me say Hotep of Aragani, or Ubuntu, even to my Africana Studies colleagues and contemporaries and seekers after truth all. Let me hasten to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, but certainly never good night, and never ever goodbye, because I always found goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel Wayne Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main Street. And we're being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, of whom my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Holliness, is the proud pastor. They always say when the Baptists and the Charismatics get together that there's always going to be a shouting in the camp. And surely God has blessed us, and we continue to rejoice and praise Him as we go forward. If I didn't mention it, let me say that I will shortly be celebrating my 50 pastoral anniversary here as a pastor in Los Angeles, 50 years. And thank God for the journey, and I thank God that I'm able here to speak these words, yet in my right mind, and as we old timers say, with a reasonable portion of health and strength. And if you would like to make a donation to my anniversary, you may, and I will give out my Cash App information later on. All right? Looking at the things that are troubling us at this present time, let me hasten to add that this is a social justice presentation, only 30 minutes, but we try to cover the events and put them in a scriptural context. Although sometimes it looks like we get further away from that, but that is one of our purposes or mission statements for why we started this broadcast called It's Time. All right. First of all, Georgia could pick up one seat if the redistricting map that the Republican-dominated legislature is not overturned, and that would add one more representative to Reverend Raphael Warnock and Senator Ossoff, who are in Congress. You know, Raphael Warnock was elected after the death of John Lewis, and he's fulfilling John Lewis's term, and I think he's been elected on his own by now. But we continue to wish him well, because the senator gets 6 years, and we know Reverend Warnock will do a great job for the state of Georgia. All right. Also, the Georgia, like I said, Georgia could pick up one seat. Currently, there are 9 Republicans to 5 Democrats, and if things go well, then that will be 6 Democrats and 9 Republicans. But of course, the gerrymandering and redistricting and the voter suppression has never been more furious, and the animus that animates some of the legislators as they draw these redistricting maps is nothing short of a headlong dive back into MAGA consciousness of white supremacy. And we must be aware of that. And the black communities are being sliced and diced because the powers that be want to remain in power. And that brings us to our second subject that we want to observe, and that is the importance of language. Remember last week I spoke about Professor Ngugi wa Thiong'o's observations on language and how the conqueror tries to suppress the conquered people's language and make them learn the conqueror's language. And even so in our culture here in America, we must watch the language that is being employed or being used by those who don't have our best interests at heart. And the language is sometimes what you call dog whistle politics. For those of you that don't know, a dog whistle cannot be heard by human ears, but a dog can pick it up. And a lot of the words that have crept into the socio-political lexicon, or vernacular if you would have it, are dangerous. And you need to take heed to what people are saying. And don't just take it for granted. Look behind those words and see what is the real meaning of those words, because what you are thinking may not be what is actually being heard by some other person who may not have your best interests at heart. I'll put it that delicately. Because of Trumpism or white supremacy, we need to carefully parse the language and terms being employed in the current debate. Skipping down, let me make this observation. It has been observed that factual analysis has been rendered null and void. The big lie, like it says Donald Trump won the election and Biden is not a legitimate president. Those are lies that the opposition has iterated and repeated and reiterated, so that now certain elements of the United States of America actually believe that lie. And that is the value of language. That's why you must take heed to what is being said around and about you, and because what sounds innocuous to you may actually be the words or the terms that will trigger the impulse, if I may use that term, of another who may not be so well balanced. Look at the young man that they're searching for in Maine, who was just recently came out of the mental wards, discharged from the mental wards, and the U.S. military had put him in the mental ward for observation because of statements that he was making, and they didn't take away his guns. So with the NRA, he was able to still have access to his weapon of choice, and he chose the AR-15. And what did he do? He went out to the bowling alley and he killed 7 people, and then he drove over to the nightclub over there. The name of it escapes me right now, but it's all over the news. And he killed 8 people, you know. And by the time his spree was over, 18 people were confirmed dead. And so you have to watch what the politicians are saying. You have to watch who's listening to them, and you have to be alert to the language that is being employed, because it may not be as innocuous or as innocent as it may sound on our ear. They develop a term here in the United States. They tell us that we are being gaslighted, and what gaslights mean, you alert 1 second, but then somebody tell you it's okay and you go right back to sleep. Gaslighting. So we are in that era where we have to watch the language that the politicians are using. Excuse me. History informs us that inflammatory hate speech is an essential precedent to acts of unimaginable mass violence. I'll say that again. History informs us that inflammatory hate speech is an essential precedent to acts of unimaginable mass violence. What are the people saying in Maine right now? We never thought it would happen here. Unimaginable mass violence. And they have more guns, they say, in the state of Maine. Maine, I think, and Vermont are two of the whitest states in the Union. Naturally, they say we don't have no shootings here because most of the folks here is what? Is white. And who was that doing the shooting? Why, it was a white man. And talking about language, now when I saw the picture of the man, the image of the man that was on TV, he had an AR-15 that he was pointing, and he was entering the bowling alley, and naturally the cameras, surveillance CCTV cameras, caught him as he was entering. But now the police and the news media in Maine refused to call him a killer, not even called him a shooter. They only called him a person of what? Interest. Yet he was there in the photo, in the image captured by the closed circuit TV with a AR-15, which he used to kill, I believe, 7 people at that location alone. And if he only killed 1 person, he should have been labeled a killer, or a perpetrator, or at least a criminal, or a thug. But none of those labels were placed upon this white fellow with this AR-15 in his hand, shooting up the bowling alley where he lived. He was only called a person of interest. That's the power of language. And that's, you notice, I bring that up because when it's a black person, he may not even have a gun, but automatically they are labeled a perp or a perpetrator or a suspect. This man wasn't even called a suspect. He was a person of interest. His name is Robert Card. Today they finally started calling him what he is: a killer, a murderer, a mass murderer. And so that is why you have to watch the language that is being employed, my sisters and brothers, around and about you. This news media has a set of verbiage, adjectives and predicates that they use when the suspect is white, and they have a totally different bag of predicates and adjectives and adverbs that they use when the suspect is black. If you're black, you're automatically a suspect. You're a criminal. You're a thug. And I had to check myself because I sometimes, fall a prey a prey to the soothing language that you hear from the news media. And but you don't want to be gaslighted. You want to be aware, because remember, there's a propaganda program that is going on 24/7 in our culture. Let me state again, history informs us that inflammatory hate speech is an essential precedent to acts of unimaginable mass violence. Who knows? This man may have been listening to Donald Trump or some of these other inflammatory speakers that we have in the Congress or in politics, period, because you never know who's in the audience or what their level of mentality may be, or what they are going through, and you may your speech may push them off the edge, and you have this event, this sad event, and sadly, this is the 565th. Can you believe that? Mass shooting this year, and that's taken from the Gun Violence Archive, who keep up with the gun violence in the United States. And so you can see how dangerous language is. Let me give you another example. It's from a speech that Donald Trump delivered this week. So Donald Trump, I'm quoting, "Together we will take on the ultra-left." Donald Trump, I'm speaking. "Together we will take on the ultra-left wing." Notice the words, the adjectives, and the nouns that he uses. They are liars, losers, creeps, perverts, and freaks who are devouring the future of this state like a swarm of locusts. Those are very inflammatory words, and Donald Trump knows what he's doing. He's a master at that type of language. If you don't believe it, look how he whipped up the people there on January 6th in 2021 and got them to go climb the walls of the Capitol, as he so laughingly uttered those words. And we have over 1,000 plus people that are convicted now for actions that they were inspired to do. I said inspired to do. The language that Donald Trump used incited them to go down to the Capitol, and the rest is history. And yet Donald Trump sits there with his hands and say, my hands are innocent, my hands are clean, and but yet his hands are just as bloody as Rush Limbaugh's hands were when he kept preaching those words of hate. And Warren McVeigh, his last name was McVeigh. I better not say his first name, I might make a mistake. Timothy McVeigh was inspired after reading the Turner Diaries and listening to Rush Limbaugh. He actually did what the Turner Diaries was only theorizing. He went and got ammonium sulfate, enough to build himself a bomb. He put it into a back of a Ryder truck, and he went to the FBI Alpha Murrah building there in Oklahoma. And what happened? He blew that building up, and they killed a massive amount of people. And a lot of those people that worked in that building were black people. So he knew what he was doing. But who was inciting him was the language coming out of the radio and the language coming out of the Turner Diaries. Rush Limbaugh is dead now, but he was just as guilty of the murder of those people at the Alfred M. Murrah building as Timothy McVeigh. And that's the value of hate speech. It inspires people to do hateful things. Things that they probably wouldn't ordinarily do, but you put the thought in their mind. and in their heads. And they need to convict Donald Trump for his hate, because of his hate speech. And because his hate speech motivates people to action. He knows how to whip up a crowd. He knows how to whip up his fan base. And the politician from, I think he's from Louisiana, who is now the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is handpicked by Donald Trump. Don't think you got away. No, that's Donald Trump in another body. He thinks like Donald Trump. He talks like Donald Trump. He's against everything that Donald Trump is against. And the only person that Donald Trump is not against is himself. And if you don't watch out, Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for president all over again. And even though he is what Nancy Pelosi calls a thug. Should have called him worse, but she only called him a thug. He should call him a traitor. That would be more apt, because he's not thinking about the United States of America. He's only thinking about himself and how he can get back in that seat as the president. And everything that Trump stands for, this Mike Johnson stands for. He's being very evasive and coy right now, because they asked him about the 2020 election. Did he still believe that the election was fraud and was stolen? And he kind of, he hawed around about it and said, well, we're going to move on, leave it right there. Just as when they asked him about the shooting in Maine and asked him, should they think they should revisit the AR-15 gun control, and he said, well, our thoughts and our prayers are with the people, but we all need to pray. But see, you don't elect a politician to pray. You elect a politician to legislate, to put the laws on the books that you don't have to pray on that one no more. And someone was saying today, we should not have to live like this, where every time we turn around on our televisions and radios, our newspapers, or now in the social media, we're being notified of another mass shooting, And let me likewise observe that these mass shootings are all being conducted or carried out by our white brothers. You hear me now? And that is something that we need to take a very good note of, All of these mass shootings are being carried out by our white brothers who have somehow gone off the deep end. It's always the young fella that is, for the most part, but yet they are doing these mass murders at the behest and at the incitement, yes, of one Donald John Trump. And don't forget the other renegades that are likewise in the Congress. Jim Jordan, Scalise, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz. At the last count in 2021, when they took the count, they found out that there were 149 sympathizers with those people that were climbing up on the walls outside. That included Ted Cruz. Don't leave him out. We can't call it, they're all the road on it, but there's a list with all of their names, and they are the rabid, ultra-conservative. They are in the same category of those in the Civil War, leading up to the Civil War, those people that they call fire eaters. They were so rabidly against the Union, and that was Mr. Rhett, newspaper publisher there. I forget what state he was in. I think Carolina. But those people were what you call fire eaters. That's how badly they wanted to secede from the Union. And when they got a chance, they did so and fired on Sumter. Fire? All right. Anyway, I trust that you will take heed and be watchful, because the language is going on all around you. That's how we communicate. So when you're sitting or driving or in a crowd, pay attention to what is being said around and about you. They may not be calling your name, but you don't know that they are not thinking about you in what they are saying. All right? Like I said, we need to carefully parse the language and terms being employed in the current debate. Dog whistle politics, jargon is slang, dog whistle politics is the language and the slang that is being is noteworthy. All right, remember the oath keepers. What were they saying? You will not replace us. Who was the us? It certainly wasn't me. They weren't talking about me. They were talking about themselves. You will not replace us. And then they said Jews will not replace us. And where did we last time hear that? Why, from the Hitlerites, from the Nazis, from the fascists. And now we're back there again. And we have to be careful. And as I wrap up, the representative from the state of Maine, Mr. Jared Golden, he says he now regrets the fact that he voted against the AR-15 ban. Well, better late than never. And he now supports a ban after the Maine massacre. And then, too, as I get ready to wrap this up, the GOP does not believe in government. They believe in anarchy. Donald Trump is an anarchist. Donald Trump believes in chaos. He said so himself. He thrives on confusion. He thrives on chaos. And so we cannot afford to take our eye off the ball. Remember, they are fighting in Ukraine. They are fighting in Israel. We are fighting right here. We got all of these mass shootings, 565 thus far this year. Thank God it's in the month of October. Hopefully we can get to the end of the year without another one, but you never know. And because of these realities, a lot of us, are going to be more careful as we go out about our daily business, because we don't have a security anymore. We can't take for granted that we are in safe surroundings. Is that right? And remember, they still have not passed a anti-lynching law bill. Senator Kamala Harris, when she was in the Senate, and I think Cory Booker had put it forth, but as of yet, it has not been signed into law. The Asians and the Pacific Islanders have an anti-hate against them bill that was signed into law, but we blacks do not, as of yet, have an anti-lynching, anti-hate crime bill. Remember that the Koreans in the 92 upheaval were permitted by the police to have their weapons and to protect their buildings and their stores, and you could see them shooting down into the crowd. They were never held accountable for anybody that they shot or wounded or killed, for that matter. And that throws you back on the Sun Jadu, who was the owner, or clerk rather, at the Empire Market there on 90th and Figueroa, where my church, up the street from where my church used to be. And remember that she shot Latasha Hollins in the back of the head. Blew that girl's head off. And the case was brought before a judge who just that week previously had thrown a man in jail for 6 months for hitting a dog in the head with a bottle. But she gave Sunja Adu a $500 fine and 5 years probation. I kid you not. So we are not, we ain't in no promised land, and you better keep your eyes open and watch what's going on around and about you. And I'm not being inflammatory, I'm saying being watchful. All right. Thank God the United Auto Workers have a contract with Ford. They got 1 down, they got 2 to go. They got to get with General Motors, and they got to get with Stellantis. I believe that's the name of the company that owns Chrysler. And so as we come out of this, I want to say again, as I always say, if you're working on a job and they don't want to pay you, you know what you need to do? Don't be no fool. Because if you're working hard, would have been all it was to get rich, every slave coming out of slavery would have at least been a millionaire. So then if you are working on a job and you know they don't want to pay you, take my considered advice and don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. Love you. Everything gonna be all right.